Now, before we move on to Jim Crow Clyburn, I would like to show a proper introduction. When you question Clyburn, and essentially he didn't know exactly what to say, so I would like to show that video to the viewers here so they can understand and get some context and background of essentially how he couldn't answer some of the basic questions that you had for him. So let's look into that video here.
We're coming too often the politicians that say they speak for us never want to speak to us. So I think we should thank him for being here. We should thank him for being here. Congressman Clyburn, I love this handout, but it's missing one thing, and I'm gonna try not to get emotional, but I want to read it. In 2019, the average, and I know you know these statistics, the average wealth of the average white American family is $188,000. For Black American families, it's only $24,000. Now, I'm Gullah, okay? 80% of rural land, Black land ownership, has been lost since 1969. A white high school dropout has more wealth than a Black college graduate. Per the Accountable USA and the Food and Research Action Center, your district and the district I've grown up in is the 6th poorest district in the United States of America.
Which district? The 6th district?
South Carolina District 6. Now, there's a quote, and maybe that's not true.
He acted like he didn't know what he heard.
There's a quote.
Right.
I
He was
do not
surprised I knew it.
census data, but there's a quote that says, "I do not buy the concept popular in the 1960s, which said we have suppressed the Black man for 300 years, and the white man is now far ahead in the race for everything our society offers. In order to even the score, we must now give the Black man a head start, or even hold the white man back to even the race. I don't buy that. I'll be damned if I pay for the sins of my forefathers. I don't feel responsible for the sins of my forefathers. I just feel responsible for now." Now, hearing that quote, y'all might think I'm talking about Donald Trump. No, that was Joe Biden. Now, Congressman, you said we know Joe and Joe knows us. And Joe Biden told us that he would have our backs. But since being in office, Joe Biden has signed executive action for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. He has signed executive action for LGBTQ citizens. He has done executive action for Native Americans. But where's his executive action for Black Americans? Now, what a lot of people may not realize, I don't know, but I just learned this. Funny thing, Joe Biden got in office and he repealed a lot of stuff Donald Trump did. For a man who said he wasn't concerned with the sins of forefathers, he's sure repealing past sins of Donald Trump. But what about the biggest sin and the original sin this country committed, which was the brutal enslavement of my people? And after slavery, the race massacres, the violent discrimination that kept us in poverty, the land theft, okay? We, Black Americans, now, since 1865, Black Americans own only 0.5 wealth in America. Today, we own less than 3%. Since slavery, not much has changed. Joe Biden could easily do executive action and bring back the Freedmen's Bureau, whose job was to close all disparities between Black Americans, who are descendants of freedmen, and white Americans. Joe Biden, with just a stroke of a pen, can start a commission to study reparations and implement them. You are a representative. We can't show up everywhere. People say, well, Black people need to organize. We've been organizing since the 1500s. These other groups come in like Asian Americans, and within a few months, they get bills for them. It's your job to speak up for us. So you say we know Joe and Joe knows us. I don't care what type of heart Joe has. I care about the policies Joe is going to pass. So why is it, Congressman Clyburn, that you do not support reparations and you do not push Joe Biden to at least bring back the Freedmen's Bureau to close all disparities between white Americans and Black Americans? We talk about a crisis at the border. What about the crisis in Black America? That was the difference is the crisis in Black America was inflicted on us externally. Well, America was built on our back, and we still hold this country up on our backs. It's broken every bone in our bodies, and yet it keeps up with our strength. Okay, well, can you please explain why you haven't pushed them then on executive action, specific policies for your people, Black Americans? That's my question. I don't get it.
What makes you think I haven't?
Because we haven't seen it. I see you on the news and you talk about every other issue, AAPI, LGBTQ. I watch you. I follow you just to see if you're going to mention Black American issues, and you don't.
Have you ever heard of HR 40?
Yes. HR 40, yes, that lacks direct cash payments and has no specific, that lacks direct cash payments. It lacks specific policies that Black Americans are supposed to get. It's just a study, but what policy is it specifying for us?
When you start?
We start with the minimum that Black Americans are supposed to get.
Answer the question. Now, where would you start?
I would start with the minimum, that a reparations policy for Black
How do you
Americans.
know what the minimum is?
I'm trying to answer your question. You gonna let me answer it? Where would I start?
Tell me what the minimum is.
The minimum, there's a book called From Here to Equality that you have a copy of because the Mystic Branch NAACP sent you a copy because I called your office. The minimum is explained in that book, at least $11 trillion, direct cash payments, land allotment, tax exemption, free education, the Freedmen's Bureau returning to close all disparity. That's the minimum.
Okay.
This country can't bring back all the people they've taken from us, but they can at least make a big down payment, like the $65 billion, give us our $65 trillion.
Okay.
I'm running out of space.
It's gonna be in down
I'm
there.
running out of space.
Well, that's saying a mouthful, Marcel. So we understand that Jim Clyburn, unfortunately, has a lot of power and a lot of influence. And, you know, he's been in Congress, for the past 4 decades or so. How are you planning to remove his foreign seat? And I know you need a lot of support in this, but what are some of your plans in order to essentially remove this guy?
Well, one, education. Okay. I need people to, if you listen to that video, did you hear people gasp audibly when I was reading
Absolutely.
all statistics?
In the beginning, yes.
Exactly. I always use the analogy of a flea circus. A flea circus is started when people put a fleas in a box, they put a lid on. At first, the fleas try to escape, but after about an hour, you take the lid off and they no longer try to escape. That is the condition of a lot of voters, especially in South Carolina District 6. We have become so accustomed to the poverty here, to the troubled schools here, to the homelessness here, to the lack of opportunities here, to the lack of infrastructure here, that we have come to normalize this. And even though people may know that we deserve more, they don't realize how bad off we really are. So education is very important. Letting people know our current status. 2, letting people know his record. As I said, starting off, he's had 30 years of representing us, and we are the 6th poorest district out of 435. After 30 years, I'm a teacher.
And that's in the entire U.S., correct?
Exactly. Out of the entire United States of America. I'm a teacher. If I had 30 students, and after 30 years, only 6 of them could read, would you give me 2 additional years to try to get it right then? No. So I'm letting people see that you have a choice to make. He's had 30 years to get it right. People want to talk about experience. He has experience. He knows his way around Washington, D.C. But what good has that done us? So people have a choice. If you want what we've been getting, where Black Americans have the shortest lives, Black men have the shortest lives of all demographics, we own less homes now than our grandparents did during the 1960s, when it was legal to discriminate against us. And for white Americans who may think this doesn't concern them, during the Trump administration, sociologists came up with a new term. They call it deaths of despairs, to try to describe the high number of mainly white men, middle-aged white men, dying by suicide, alcoholism, and drug overdose. And the reason they identify is because they are seeing less and less opportunities for white people without a college degree. Whereas they used to be able to get jobs and take care of family without a college degree, they are seeing those jobs evaporate. Those are the type of conditions that have existed under people like Mr. Clyburn. So if people want more of that, by all means, vote for him. But if you want better and you know we deserve better, voting for me is how we get better. That's one thing I do. And two, I don't write off anyone. I talk to Black people who are very liberal. I speak to white people, because I'm in South Carolina, obviously, who are extremely conservative. And guess what? When I speak to them, I don't back down from reparations. I let them know that if you are white, you should be the first person pushing for reparations. I let them know that, one, we need you to help get reparations done. Okay? We can do it without you, but we need you to get reparations done, because with white people's support, it can happen that much more quickly. And I let them know what I said at the beginning of this interview. This country would have been twice as rich, at least, if reparations had been done in 1865. So if you are a white person and you bring home $1,000 each week, I imagine bringing home $2,000 now. And that's just if we would have done reparations in 1865. Black Americans, as of now, putting around $3 to $4 trillion into this economy. And that's with us having the lowest amount of wealth.